Good morning, children. Today we're going to talk about how to listen. I know what you're thinking. You got ears, you know how to listen. But the reality is, you got ears, you know how to hear. But do you know how to listen? Let me show you. Think about Thriller by Michael Jackson. If you've been alive on Earth for more than 2 minutes, you've heard Thriller. But have you listened to it? Does it have real drums or electronic drums? Is it bright? Is it dark? Does it have a string section? Does it have a horn section? Does anybody play some descending major 7 arpeggio somewhere in there? Have you listened to it? If you have, you should know. So what we're going to do today is we're going to listen to music with a focus. Not Michael Jackson Thriller because they wouldn't let us, but some really great track nonetheless. The first thing to be mindful of is your oral memory. And somebody please write oral memory on the screen so that you know what I'm talking about, because I do have a slight but perceptible French accent. So, oral memory. I think there are 2 kinds of oral memory, long-term, short-term. The long-term kind is your musical culture and your sonic culture. It's something you develop over the years. It's the reason why it takes a long time to learn how to mix a record or to produce a record, because you are educating your brain over the years on what you like, what you don't like, what other people like and don't like. It's a lifelong process. Say, for example, you live in New York City and you don't use your car too much, but it's still your reference for your mixes. Maybe you haven't been in your car listening to music for 10 days. But if you take that mix and you go in that car, you will know right away, right? You will know right away if the mix is right or not. That's your brain remembering how music is supposed to sound in that environment from 10 days ago. But not just from 10 days ago, from having been in that situation many, many times over the years. The problem with long-term oral memory is that it's fickle and not super reliable because it's very environment-based. Meaning, the place you were in when you built that memory, the mood you were in when you built that memory, the devices you built that memory through, good speakers, bad speakers, headphones, old headphones, car that you like, car you didn't like, all that taints the memory. And so it takes an averaging over the years for you to be able to get a real idea of what things actually sound like. Fortunately, to compensate for the fickleness of the long-term oral memory, we have the short-term oral memory. Short-term oral memory is what you naturally use when you're working on your production and mixes. As in, play something, boom, 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 raise the vocal 1 dB, play it again, boom, boom, boom. Do you hear the difference? What happens is you're removing the physical environment from the variables because you're playing everything on the same set. So now you can focus on the difference between the 2 different passes. Unfortunately, even short-term oral memory is not that easy to use. It takes time and work to develop it. Most people, even some professionals I know, listen to music the way their girlfriends do. Meaning, our girlfriends either like the song or don't. They couldn't care less about the sound of the bass drum or if the vocal is bright. Really, they don't care. But we should care. That's why we have to learn to develop our skills, our listening skills, so we can pinpoint our attention on one part of the mix, or the whole mix, or that other part of the mix at will. Let me show you. Listen to this track. I'm going to play it twice. First, raw, and then I'm going to change something. But you don't get to see what I changed. You just have to listen. Check it out. First pass. Now I changed something. Check it out. Did you hear a difference? Do you think you heard a difference? Was there a difference? Am I trying to trick you? What's the difference? Let's practice. I'm going to go back to no change, the original. Now, focus on the bass drum and the bass. Try and tune out the rest of the song. Just focus all your attention on the bass drum and the bass. First pass. with the change.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes.
Okay, so you may have heard it or you may not. But I do promise there's a difference. If you haven't heard it, it means that your current ability to retain the memory of the sound is shorter than the length of the sample I picked. So what if I pick a shorter sample and I just alternate? So it's going to be 2 bars, and you'll see on the screen on and off. See if you can hear a difference now. Still focus on the bass drum and the bass. Check it out. First flat, and then effect.
This is how we live. 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 This is how we live.
It's easier with the shorter sample, right? Let me show you what I was doing. Here's the EQ I'm using. Plus 1.98 dBs at 145 Hertz shelf. So definitely will affect the bass drum and the bass. Let me show you what's going on. When there's bypass, nothing happens. When I remove the bypass, you hear the correction. Here we go.
This is how we live. This is how we live. This is how we live. This is how we live.
Now you get it. Let's go one step deeper in this spirit. I'm gonna take the bass off, select a longer period of time, and I'm gonna first play the sample flat.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes.
Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on a shelf, 1.6 dB at 3K shelf. So the whole high end is gonna go up like this. So pay attention to the high end, the hi-hats, and see the difference in shine. Same length of sample.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes.
Did you hear it? Yes? No? Maybe. Were you focused? Were you listening to the high end? If you heard something, in this particular case, I tricked you. I played the same thing twice, but I changed something on the screen. If you heard something, it means that your eyes took over your ears and fooled you. It happens all the time. Without being caught playing with an EQ for 15 minutes and then realizing that the EQ is off. But for those 15 minutes, we actually heard something. We are kidding ourselves into hearing things. If you didn't hear it, we're kind of like wondering, should I be hearing it? That means you're still not quite sure what you're hearing. Your brain is taking over your ears and standing in the way of the perception. So the key is to really focus on listening and forget about the thinking, and especially turn off your eyes. So I'd like to recommend to always remember to turn the screen off, turn the light off, or just look the other way when you're listening for something very important. I always look down or to the side. I never look at the screen when I want to make a critical assessment. And I definitely don't look at the plugin UI because that is guaranteed to fool you. Another advantage of closing your eyes is that once they're closed and you're listening to music, you can start assigning virtual visual positions to every instrument in the mix in kind of a virtual space or a virtual canvas, if you will. Some people call it visual mixing. Dimensions you should consider are top to bottom, which is, bass at the bottom, mids in the middle, hence the name mids, and then highs, well, up high. And then there's left to right. That's also easy, right? Left, right. We know that one. More complicated, the Z-plane, the front to back, the 3D thing, here, here, and here. And then there's also dynamic. Dynamic is kind of like the fourth dimension because We used to think of it as a vertical thing because we're used to looking at faders. Less fader is quieter and more fader is louder. So we think of it this way. But the reality is that if you close your eyes and you listen to music, if something gets louder, it's going to feel closer. That combined with other tricks lets you do the Z plane. But it's kind of different. We're not going to get into how to achieve that right now. I just want to get into listening to it and trying to see if you can feel that, if you can get that feeling. Because if you can get the feeling, then you can recreate the feeling when you're mixing your songs. So I'm going to give you some example. In this track, first thing to listen to is the Z plane. How far up is the bass drum? Where's the snare drum? Behind it at the same level? Where's the vocal? Behind it further? Now, if you compare bass drum and snare drum, are they at the same frequency height or a little higher? Do they really feel like that? And then guitars. The guitars are left and right, but there's a guitar in the middle too. So how does that feel? Can you close your eyes and actually visualize that stuff? Try it. Close your eyes.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Periscopes. This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Whoa, periscopes. I can't read.
So I'm not going to get into how to achieve this right now. What's important is that you should at least have that on your mind when you listen to music, because if you can feel that, then you can recreate that feeling and apply those principles and create that environment in your own mixes. In the spirit of trying to achieve what you hear is what you get, here's an interesting exercise. I'm going to play you two examples back to back. Example A and example B. Which one do you like best? Which one sounds better? Which one's more your bag? Check it out. Here's A. Close your eyes.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Periscopes.
B.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Periscopes.
B is more exciting, right? It's more in your face, it's more aggressive, right? Okay, now let's do something else. Let's go back to A, play that for a few bars, and then I'm going to do a new example called C. First A, then C. Here we go.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Periscopes.
C.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Periscopes.
Just for good measure, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to play A from where the synth comes in, listen to how it sounds. And then I'm going to play C in the same spot. Listen to the drums, bass drum, and the bass, and listen to the overall tone of the song. Here's A,
Through periscopes. Periscopes.
C.
Through periscopes. Periscopes.
Isn't that interesting? Obviously, C is crunchy, the bass goes away, the bass drum is pushed back, it doesn't sound so good. Now, the fun thing here is that B, which we liked a lot, and C, which we do not, is exactly the same thing, played at different levels. If I play A and then B, being the crushed mix but loud, I like B. If I play A and C, which is the exact same crushed mix but at the same level, I like A better. The moral of this story, because there is a moral to this story, is that whenever you're going to do anything, you got to match your levels. Because if you don't match your levels, you're fooling yourself. Same thing as you're fooling yourself with your eyes. Level will fool you into thinking that things are better. The louder, the better. That's the big lesson. So whenever you do compression, whenever you do drastic EQ, make sure that you listen pre and post at the same level. Otherwise, you're lying to yourself. Let's go deeper into the tricks your mind can play on yourself. Here's an interesting thing. First example, second example, try and feel the difference. Number one.
This is how we look for each other through periscopes. Periscopes. This is how we look for each other through periscopes.
The second example sounds so dark and dull, right? The problem in this case is that the second example is actually our bass mix, which has been sounding great to us since the very beginning. It's always been our pick. It's not dull, it's just right. Listening to a bright version of it for 20 seconds makes it feel dull, but in reality, it's not. What you hear is not always what you get. You have to be very careful when you work to not fool yourself into wanting more high-end and being stuck with it. For example, say you're EQing a vocal and you're doing that trick when you jack up the frequency and you're looking for what you're looking for. Fine, you find it. If you do that for too long, say you have 5 dBs at 10K and looking for the exact right spot, when you're going to bring it back down, it's going to feel dull. So what you're going to do? Jack it back up. And what that's going to do? Ruin your mix. You got to be really careful about that stuff. It's all about intent listening and also being careful about what you do and being mindful of what you do. Here's another one. Tonight, when you're done working on your music, don't touch anything, especially not the volume knob. Leave it as is. Then come back in the morning and press play. Just how loud is it? Insanely loud? Was that you listening at that level last night? No way. Yes way, it was you. Are you crazy? No. Why is it so loud? It's because throughout the day, while you were working, levels crept up. Why? For the same reason we just saw, because maybe you play it loud a little bit, then you don't really want to bring it back down. And plus, louder feels better. Louder always feels better. It's not better, but it feels that way. So be careful. As I said at the very beginning, the environment taints the perception of the music. It gets in the way. You are fooling yourself. Make sure you keep your levels in check. We'll do a whole video on monitoring techniques, but for now, leave that volume knob alone. Last but not least, in the art of listening, here's an interesting way to regain perspective when you've lost it. The perspective. Say you're mixing and you're done is the best thing you've ever done. Call someone to come listen with you, just to see how that feels. I guarantee you it will be a completely different experience. It needs to be a human being. The cat or the dog won't do. Now, they don't have to be professionals, but it's fun with professionals, especially if you have access to two kinds of professionals. Some whose opinion you respect, and people whose opinion you do not respect, like the drummer in the band, for example. Check this out. If you listen to the same mix with somebody whose opinion you respect, and then 2 minutes later with somebody whose opinion you don't respect, it's going to feel completely different. It's fun to try, and it gives you a good insight on how much your mind is playing tricks on you at all times. As twisted as it sounds, the first step to not be lying to yourself is to know that you are lying to yourself at all times. Critical listening is an active experience. You need to practice and get better at it. You need to build your short-term oral memory and your long-term oral memory. And you need to remember, just remember, to get rid of the distractions as much as possible. Turn the screen off, close your eyes, look elsewhere. Don't let your eyes kill you. Don't let the levels kill you. Don't let the brightness kill you. But more importantly, make sure that you always have your girlfriend around to listen to the final mix before you deliver it. Et voilà.